Hello YouTubers and 00 railway enthusiasts, welcome to another video from Source 6233, and this is part 4 of my princess project. Now you're looking at this princess and thinking that's not a normal princess, and in a way you are correct. It is in fact being repainted. In my research I found that 46203, the Princess Margaret Rose, was presented in an experimental blue livery for a while. I haven't found out exactly what colour that is, and I went for this one. This is in fact a Garter Blue, and it looks nice and smart. The only problem is I can't find decals to match the colour. So I'm going to take an even bigger liberty and make a new princess with a new number and a new name. Where I'll get decals from, I don't know, but we'll worry about that later on. I've taken the liberty of doing the preliminary work, so I've cleaned and lubricated the chassis and painted the drive wheels. I've stripped down, I've replaced the brush heads on the brush arms, I've checked the armature, I've lubricated the fibre washers at the axle of the commutator, and this is now a reconditioned motor which works well. I've got the tender painted, I've fixed on the draw arm because the little pin had broken, and I've got the bogies all ready to run. I've got all the con rods and all the bits there. The only flaw in this is that my buffer bar has a broken buffer connector at this end. Unusual in this that it doesn't have the fit-in buffers, it has a pin buffers, and this has been broken off. It looks as if someone's had a go at it. However, as this is going to be one of my own personal railway locomotives, I don't think that's going to make a lot of difference. So, let's get started. First task, I'm going to rebuild the tender. Just to ensure tender has got some nice buffers. Type 3 coupler. The axles have all been cleaned and lubricated. Nice weight in there. And the only problem was the drawbar, but I fixed that, so that sits on top, which should do quite nicely. Screw into here, and that should sit nicely there, not too tight. Ready for some decals with British Railway on it, and a nice little bit of Hole Effect which sits on there. I always think that the low bit should be at the front because that's where the tape to go from first. Oops, and put that in, slide it neatly down, and there we have a nice tender. So let's leave that aside and we'll carry on with the assembly of the locomotive. As always, I like to start with the drive gear. As we look at this chassis, this is the front, this is the right hand side, this is the left hand side. This is a fit under piston, which means that it goes underneath the chassis, and it slides into this groove near the front. Give it a little press and it clicks in there, but it's held in with a little screw and a washer. I actually lost the washer, so I've made a replacement from an old con rod which I've just chopped up. And if I take this screw and fit it neatly into my washer, oops, then that will hold the cylinder block in place and allow me to fit the rest of the con rod assembly. always finicky when you're trying to deal with 2 or 3 different implements. Try again. The problem I have with this is that the part I'm using for the washer is so neat. I actually had to screw it through the washer to get it to fit. However, there we go. Then what I'm going to try and do is move this little lip, which I'll just bring in and let you see. Yep, you can see the little lip. I want that actually on top of the piston, the cylinder block. That acts as a nice little retainer. Oh, then out comes the spring and screw again. I'll try again. Sorry about this, folks. This is all happening live as you're watching. Well, actually being recorded live as you're watching. There's a bit of a contradiction. But there we go. That's in there. And this little lip holds the cylinder block safely in place. So let me come out a wee bit of it again. And now we can start to put the assembly together. This is the right hand side and this is the right hand drive piston. You can tell because on the drive shaft is a little pip that acts as an oil well simulator. So now to get this in, it shouldn't be too difficult. You have to slide it through the hole and onto the guide pins at the same time. Sometimes it works right away, other times you can spend ages fiddling with it. Right folks, I'll have another go. If this doesn't work, I'll stop the recording, I'll do it off camera and come back to you. But here's hoping this time. That in there. One on there. And the other part of the collar on the top guide. And there we have it. That should go in first, then you take the con rods aligned properly. I always remind you these pips should be facing upwards. Put the spacer over the central hole, line up the drive arm on there, and the screw should sink neatly through the assembly into the drive wheel itself. Small screwdriver helps to get it fastened properly. Make sure it's free, looks good. And then we repeat the process with the right hand side. So this is, sorry, the left hand side, I've just done the right. This is the collar and drive arm for the left hand side. So let's see if I can get it done without too much hassle. In there, and then over the top guide pin. That won't hurt too much. There we go. In and out. A little bit of oil, that'll work his way through. Keep it going nicely. The con rods, and they should line up without too much trouble. The spacer, S2014 I think is the part number for the spacer. Drive arm over the top. And the retaining screw sinks right through the assembly, and a wee bit of nudging, just feel it sinking in, and there we go. And hopefully a wee bit sticking. It takes a wee bit of alignment sometimes. Right, let's try that. Yep, that was alright. Oops, something happening somewhere. That's can often happen when you're doing it, because maybe a little bend somewhere. Nope, that's okay. Yep. Now I like to fit the motor. Here's the motor, been reconditioned, and it sits in there with the worm wheel engaging with the drive gear. And try and lift it up, make sure that it works. Yep, that's moving. Held by a screw at the back, which I should have had ready. And at this point I'll just fit in the earthing tag for the suppressor. Screw holds the motor in place firmly. Before you tighten that, make sure that the motor is seated properly and that it drives the wheels. It does. And then you can just apply a nice little bit of pressure to keep the screw nice and tight. And we also have our earthing tag for the suppressor. At this point, I can now test and see if my motor will drive the drive gear. Not connected up through the pickup, of course, so I have to apply power directly to the chassis and then to the positive pole of the motor. So let's apply power and see what happens. And oh yeah, here we go. Yep. Nice and smooth. Applying more power. Running nicely. And now into reverse. Possibly just needing a bit running. There we go. Bit more power. My rolling road is probably causing a lot of friction. Yep, so take it off without that and it runs nice and freely. So, we know that works at that point. I'm now in the position of fitting the pickup plate so I can get power from. At this point I'm going to take the lead from the pickup and connect it to the end of the suppressor. First of all, apply a little bit of solder. And a little bit of solder here. This, of course, is called tinning. Bring the lead onto there. I will, of course, be insulating this. Otherwise, the contact from the suppressor will touch the chassis and cause a short. And now, in order to get the power to the motor, I'm going to use this lead with a little copper connector onto the positive end of the motor. and that should just slide in neatly. Good. And now I have to line the brush head up. So that they should line up nicely, one above the other. Right, and then this can be fed onto this junction. And the trick is to try and keep 3 wires together in the soldering. Just a little bit sticking out, so just snip that off. Always be careful about things like that. Right, so let's make sure that's out of the way. And let's see if we can get this to run. I'm now in position to put it onto the rolling road and see how she works. So let's bring in my rolling road. 2 rollers, and let's wind up the power. There she goes. And in the other direction. Bit of poor contact with my rolling road. Yeah, that's certainly working. I've now got the chassis up running. I've had it on the test track, so my next phase is fitting the front and the rear ponies. I've taken the liberty of trying to paint the wheels. It doesn't come out very well, this Garter Blue. However, once it's up and running, I'm sure it will look quite impressive. So starting with the front pony, these screws have a collar on them to allow the free movement of the pony, but still holding it tight into the chassis. So line that up. Make sure the collar fits nicely into the retaining hole and that the pony is free to move. Similarly with the rear pony. And in we go. There we go, nice free there. This front bogie has a Type 3 coupler. So I'm going to take it over to test track. Just took my hand away, sorry folks. I'm now going to take her over to the test track and we'll see how she runs. There's our princess in Garter Blue, ready to go. So I'm just going to stretch over and apply some power, and let's see how she goes. Quite responsive. I'm using Super 4 track, and some of it's a bit old and getting tarnished, but it should be okay as it comes round the side of the diesel sitting there. I must admit she's not the fastest of the blocks. Try a bit more power and see how she goes. But what's good for me is she's nice and steady. Next time round I'll try and get a nicer glimpse of the mechanism. So, Forgive me while I lose her for a few seconds. Here she comes. And missed it. I'm never very good at handheld, guys. So let's try again. Let's palm over nicely. Slow down just a touch. And there we go. Okay, so let's go and finish the build. Bring it round once more. And we'll finish the build from there. Okay, let's put the body shell into the chassis. The body shell fits with these two lugs, fit into a groove in the bottom of the cab. That sits in there. Make sure the wires are out of the way in the suppressor, and that is just sitting in nicely. Turned it over. This is a buffer over screw, I think it's called, and I've got the screw here, and that should fit in there, catch in the groove and just fit in there. This is the new screw. I shall probably have to paint that black. Right. I did not expect that. Oh, someone has stripped that screw thread, screw hole there. I'm very disappointed in that. After all the work I've done, I never noticed that. So I'm going to have to find a slightly bigger screw and re-tap that. So meantime, I just have to be very careful, put it all together and run it with a loose body shell. Oh, I'm disappointed in that. Okay, we'll sort that out later on. And I've also realised I haven't replaced the brass whistles, but I've got them somewhere. Okay, let's bring the tender back into play. Here she is, and that's not looking too bad. A bit messy around the foot plate, but I can tidy that up. Okay, there's my new imaginative princess in Garter Blue. Let's throw the test track and see how she goes. There's my princess in Garter Blue. I'll just try and move her forward a wee bit. There she goes. There's the tender, waiting for decals, and I've hooked up with a marine coach, which I think is LMS, but I'm not too sure, this one I had lying around. And that doesn't seem too bad. Let's try and catch her as she comes around here. Nice and responsive. Yeah. Going well, that's fine. Right, so there we go there. And we'll just let her run around for a wee while. Well, that's my princess in Garter Blue, all up running. I'm just going to try and get some decals that will match the colour of the paint, or I might just have a wee go at painting on myself. Anyway, this is mine. I'm going to keep it. You remember the problem I had with the fixing screw at the front? Well, I found a self-tapper, the right length, just enough to catch in there, keeps it nice and firm. I'll tidy up the foot runs here on either side. They're a bit messy with paint, but then it was just an experiment. Whistles fitted, tender there. She's mine and I'm going to enjoy playing with her. All I need now is to get a few coaches that will run with her and make a nice little consist. So, thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. If you did, will you comment? And if you're like me, you like repairing, servicing, restoring Triang and Hornby or any other make of 00 locomotive, then subscribe. Maybe we could share ideas. I'd be happy to let you know anything I've discovered over the last couple of years. So, enjoy. See you on YouTube. Got that wrong, didn't I? Bye for now.